8 o'clock tip tomorrow night. Appreciate everybody helping get that information out. Hoping for a great crowd. Know it's a late game for a school night, but hoping the season ticket holders will come out. If you can't come to the game, please give your ticket to somebody. Make sure your seats are scanned. Hoping for another great student turnout. So appreciative of our students and how they've supported this team. It's a big game. It's the final round in the first half of the Big 12. It's game number 9. 2 4-4 teams that really control their own destiny in a lot of ways still. So nobody has more respect for Oklahoma and Coach Kruger than we do. Studied his teams everywhere he's ever coached. He's one of the best coaches in college basketball. He's won wherever he's been, including Oklahoma. They've got a great mix of returning players, guys like Doolittle that have been in this league for a long time, and their young guys are doing great and getting great play from a junior college transfer. You guys know how I feel about junior college. So to me, it's a really good team. It's an NCAA tournament team. It's a chance for us to try to defend our home court against a really, really good team.
Coach Jemias, the newcomer of the week again in the Big 12. Over the past week, 2 20-point performances. What have you liked out of his offensive game?
I've liked his offense. That's for sure. We're continuing to work on the other end of the floor, and the great thing about Jemias is he accepts that and owns it, and he's trying to be a complete player. But yeah, Jemias has had a great week of being aggressive, and I think when he's playing his game, he's one of the better players in college basketball. And specifically, I think he's starting to get this approach where each possession have a life of itself. That was nice to see. Doesn't get off to a very good start at the Kansas game, but keeps plugging away. Sometimes with young players, a bad start can become a bad game, or a bad half can become a bad game. And Jemias had a great week of bouncing back from adversity and really had 2 great offensive games for us.
Any update injury-wise for Kevin McCullough?
Kevin McCullough's still going through the concussion protocol. What else?
Chris's availability for the game against Oklahoma?
Yeah, Chris just had a severe, kind of ankle swollen up. Did a great job getting himself ready and tried to play in the Kansas game, and just kind of made that coach's decision that didn't want to put him out there if he wasn't at his best. So we're hopeful that he'll be able to play in tomorrow night's game.
And a guy like Christian Doolittle for Oklahoma, a guy that has really improved over his couple of years in a world in college basketball where a lot of it is, we talk about one-and-dones and young freshmen. What kind of model does he set about a guy who comes back and constantly improves and maybe ups his draft stock a little bit by staying in school?
Yeah, it's been great. The Big 12's had a lot of great 4-year players. We've had our share here, Keenan Evans, Zach Smith, Justin Gray, Norrance, and those guys. And Doolittle's a guy I have a lot of respect for. He's a positionless player. He does a lot of the things for his team that Chris Clark does for ours. He can score. He can pass. He can defend. He can play as a playmaker. He seems like he's been in the league forever. He's a really good player, and it's also a great, sign of respect for their coaching staff. Guys get better when they play for Coach Kruger. They always have, and he's the latest example. He's an outstanding player. Just a versatile guy with no position.
Coach, you talk about it all, during conference play so far, that getting to that second half of the conference play is really when you start looking at things. Being with 2 teams being 4-4, how important can this game be as far as having a winning record heading into that second half of it?
Yeah, they're all really important. This is the next game on the schedule, but I think our Texas Tech team here last year was 5-4. Then we went on to win the Big 12 and advanced to the Final Four and played on Monday night. So you don't got to look far to understand how important these games are. So, I've always said you make the turn and then you kind of see where you're at and you set the thing up to try to be a part of the fight. So it's a pivotal game, but I think it's a game like all these. It's the next game on the schedule against a really good team, Oklahoma.
And I know a lot of people have good shooters across the country and even in this conference, but when you look at Oklahoma specifically with guys like Manick and Reeves that can really spread you out, what extra challenge does that give you compared to other games you've been in?
Yeah, Oklahoma's a unique team, especially with their starting lineup. 5 guys that shoot threes, 5 guys that can dribble, pass, and shoot. They're all great passers, so it's a real challenge. In my eyes, their identity is their they're skilled offense. They score on the break, they can score in the half court, and they're really good at ISOs, one-on-one basketball too. So this translates to them being a good defensive player too. The same kind of moving parts on offense allow them to switch a lot on defense. Seems to be switching a little bit more than Coach Kruger's teams normally do, and they play without a big a lot of times. Then they come in off the bench with the freshman bigs that are really good, and they can get back to more traditional pick and roll and basketball. So, but the three-point shot's a big part of OU's identity. Again, all 5 guys in the starting lineup are three-point shooters.
Coach, 3 straight close games against some of the best teams in the country. What did you sort of take away from your team from that stretch?
Stay the course. We try to get better through victory. That was the West Virginia game, and then you try to get better through running out of time. That was the Kentucky and Kansas game. So, I think we've proven we can play with anybody in the country, but we've also proven that we got to find a consistency here in the last month of the season if we're going to be a part of the fight when it matters most.
And you said, so this is coming up on the 9th game that y'all played in the Big 12 halfway through. What do you think, expectation-wise, how's your team compared this first half of the Big 12 than what you thought?
Well, expectations will always be the same as long as I coach here. It'll be to compete for conference championships, and if you can do that, you're certainly good enough to win games in the NCAA tournament. You get to the second weekend. You're 2 wins away from a Final Four, and you're 4 wins away from a national championship. So those will always be the expectations. Continuing right now, we're trying to get ourselves back in the conference championship fight. This is a pivotal game to get that 5th win. A lot of basketball to be played. Baylor's obviously off to an outstanding start, but you go one game at a time. You give yourself a chance, and so we'd like to be in the fight starting game 10. And that's why this game, in a lot of ways, is really important to both teams.
Chris, kind of following up on what you were just asked a moment ago, going down to the wire against Kentucky, going down to the wire against Kansas, you said you've proven you can play with anybody in the country. What is it about those couple of games you feel like what's 1 or 2 things that jump out to you on film that you need to do better to get over the hump?
Well, certainly with the Kansas game, you got to start better. And we talked about it. We prepared for it. We just didn't get it done. But a lot of pivotal times in a 40-minute basketball game. The first couple minutes of the game, especially when you're playing on the road, those minutes at the end of the first half and start of the second, then you got to learn how to go win a close game. So in the Kansas game, we really would like to have that start back. I think we got down 15-2, and then we're back in the game at halftime. So the need for improvement's pretty obvious there, but the positive is, man, you fight back. A lot of teams would have just kind of rolled over at that point. Then I think, the Kentucky game, you got to learn how to finish a game, and we talk about it a lot. We learn it, sometimes through adversity, but, in the last 4 or 5 minutes of a game, you have to play the game the right way, and you have to have finishers. And this year's team, the finishers are all 5 guys on the court. Everybody's got to play their role. In past years, we give the ball to Keenan Evans, give the ball to Jarrett Culver, and this year's team's a little bit different where everybody's got to play their role, and we got to make some decisions in the last few minutes of the game. Then defensively, you have to make plays. You got to go get a big block shot, or you got to get a steal. You can't just hope the other team misses. And so those last 4 minutes of the game are a big part. I think our team has learned a lot in all the close games we played this year, but certainly the last week to 10 days have given us a lot of opportunities to try to learn, and hopefully next time we're in that situation, things will go our way.
And Ramsey playing without the mask now?
Yeah, I think.
What when the decision on when to?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was a one-game thing or not, but worked out pretty good for him, especially on the offensive end. So, I really don't get in those kinds of things. It's like some coaches care what their players' hair looks like. I could care less. Go to class, be a good citizen, defend our culture, play defense, take good shots, care about the guy next to you. I don't care what your hair looks like. Same kind of deal with that mask. I just want Ramsey to play on both ends and continue to be the great kid he is.
because I assume you probably want to focus more on things on the court. But with Joelle, how do you keep his morale high when maybe he's frustrated, doesn't know why he can't play? Do you have to talk to him about it, or do you kind of let him deal with it in his own way?
Joelle and I have had a plan from day one. It was to try to do everything we possibly could to get him approved to play, and we did that. No regrets on our end. And then we had a plan, some of you guys might remember, I think I've said it numerous times, but we wanted to have the best redshirt year possible if he wasn't able to play this year, and that's what we're executing. So it's just a day-to-day process with Joelle, exactly the same for anybody else in our program, except for he doesn't get to play on the days of the games. So on game days, he has an intense individual workout, really hard. His hardest workout of the week happens on game days, and then he tries to get himself locked in each game. He's a part of scouting reports. He's a part of being there behind the bench during games, kind of zoning in. So it's really the same experience that anybody has in our program in terms of the day-to-day process. He just can't play in games right now. And I think he knows why he can't play. The NCAA determined that he couldn't.
Coach, you come through this 3-game stretch with Kentucky, West Virginia, Kansas. Looks like your motion offense has been a little crisper in those 3 ball games. You're filling empty spaces with players that are making the cuts and getting open and getting shots and such. How do you see what you've done offensively the last 3 games?
Well, we scored more points. We knew we had to get to that 75, 80 point mark to have a chance to play with all 3 teams. Kentucky, Kansas, and West Virginia. So, to manufacture offense, it has to come in different ways. We try to explain to our team you have to have, variety in your scoring. You're not going to win a game with your half-court offense. You're not going to win a game with your free throw or your three-point shot. It has to be everything. So for us, it's no secret. Like, we need to score off our defense. We need to score off our half-court. Our shooters have to make some shots. We got to get to the free throw line. And then we have to get some offensive rebounds to create second opportunities. And if the other coach throws a zone out there from time to time or a press, we have to handle those. So I think our players are just continuing to kind of understand that we have to be good at all the areas to beat the teams. Now, earlier in the year, you might be able to win a game with 1 or 2 facets of your offense. But in the Big 12, you have to bring your A game at every level. And I think the last couple games, I'd agree with you, we've been getting a lot from different areas of our offense, and the motion's been good.
Defensively, have these young pups kind of turned into junkyard dogs or in the process of?
Yeah, I think we've got some street dogs, but they're street puppies. I had a cool moment with Mac one time during a game when he made just a tough play, and we've been talking about street dogs that week, and I think in that huddle I was like, man, you are a street dog. You might be a puppy, but you're a street dog. Mac and I kind of laughed about that. And, these guys have always had the willingness and the toughness to defend, It's just the experience factor. And, this will be the 9th Big 12 game, and we just got to continue to get better as we go. But we've seen some things with our defense that make us pretty optimistic on where we could be here in the next couple weeks to month. But we still strive for that consistency.